Welcome to Sputnik, orbiting the world with me, George Galloway.
And me, Gayatri.
Hollywood, like much of America, it seems, is riven by race. Enough black Americans in jail to found a small country, record numbers of black men and women shot down dead or dying on the floors of prison cells, and all under a black president.
It was probably the last thing that Hollywood needed when the great Spike Lee announced he was boycotting the Oscars in protest at the perceived lack of recognition of black and other minority talent nominated for the awards. For much of the world, Hollywood is America, at least the America of our imagination.
Joining us now is one of Britain's foremost experts on the movies, who's writing a social history of Hollywood, Christopher Sylvester. Christopher, welcome on board the Sputnik. First of all, is Hollywood a cartel of pale, male, and far too old moguls, and that's the reason why there's this perceived lack of diversity in the industry?
Well, the moguls do tend to be generally white. And that has always been the case. But there are female production executives in Hollywood and sometimes running studios. That has been the case in I think since the 80s. Sherry Lansing, I think, was the first. So it's not as perhaps as monolithic as you might be suggesting there. But it's certainly true there are no African American moguls at all.
And what's the reason for that? Money?
Yes, essentially. I think it's more likely that you'll see them rise up through the world of television first. But certainly on the public-facing side of the movie business, acting and to some extent directing, they're certainly an important and major presence these days.
You can see the problem, though, not just the wider political problem that I alluded to in the introduction, but something like 40% of all moviegoers in America are black or minority ethnic people. And is it the case that they're watching white stars in white movies made by white men?
Well, a lot of the films that they will go to will not be the sort of films that would ever be considered for the Oscars anyway. There'll be comedies, there'll be thrillers, there'll be kind of comic book special effects movies. The audience is, as you say, it may be 40% African American, but at the same time it's also heavily dominated by the youth audience, which is another factor. And of course the electorate for the Academy Awards, the Oscars, is dominated by a much older audience. And the reason for that simply is that once you qualify to be a member of the Academy, you don't disqualify, or you're not retired. You carry on until you're dead.
Is Hollywood a place, or is it just a place in our imagination? I mean, I know it exists as a place, but is the film industry all in that place?
Most of the power of the film industry is there, and that is to say the operational power. The money is wherever money is. Wall Street, most of the studios are owned by major conglomerates, so the big money is elsewhere. But yes, the operational power is in Hollywood. But you're right, and when you suggest that we think of Hollywood as a place, it is a place. I mean, most of the movie business is not located in Hollywood any longer. It's located in Beverly Hills or other parts of Los Angeles. Most of the major studios, those that still have actual lots, aren't in Hollywood and haven't been for a very long time. But the other thing is that Hollywood has famously been said to be a state of mind. It's not just a place. It's the sort of the freight of culture of American popular movies.
I just want to go back to the Oscars for a moment, because I remember when Halle Berry won her Oscar. She was the first black person black woman, and she was even only half.
She was the first black woman to win the major award of Best Actress.
Yeah, and she had to go naked for that. And
Did she? What was the movie?
The
Monsters Ball.
Monsters Ball. And Denzel Washington as well, for example, a fantastic actor and also filmmaker. And there's a pool, of course, of outstanding black actors and filmmakers, but there's a small pool. And Denzel, for all his credits, he did receive 3 global awards, but for a film in which he played a corrupt black American cop.
Well, to be fair, the first film which he won an award for was Glory, which was depicting the contribution that was made by African American soldiers on the Union side in the American Civil War. So he wasn't playing a criminal in that one. Yes, he played a corrupt cop in Training Day several years later, and it's certainly true that black actors, more actors than actresses, will be cast in films involving crime because, as George,
the stereotype.
Well, yes, but as George mentioned in the introduction, there are so many black people incarcerated under the American justice system and in American prisons that clearly there are a lot of black criminals or people who are convicted of crime. So it's not unrealistic. It's not a complete distortion for them to be playing criminals. I mean, the question is, are sufficient roles being written that, portray them in other lights and in all the other ways in which they...
He played Malcolm X and Steve Biko before.
And of course, other people, Will Smith played Muhammad Ali. So there are the great cultural black icons of America of the 20th century. Many of them have been portrayed on film.
So why do you think this row has erupted then? I mean, Spike Lee is not an insubstantial figure. He's iconic, he's brilliant. Many people admire his work. What was it that made him say, I'm not going to the Oscars this year?
Spike Lee, I like some of his films. He's clearly a talented director, but he's always been an activist. He has an agenda. I think, my personal opinion, and I've looked at the Oscar nominations this year, and I've looked at all the films that could have been nominated and the categories where black actors could have been nominated. And the only one where I see there is a really strong case for somebody to have been nominated who wasn't is Idris Elba, interestingly an English black actor, for Beasts of No Nation. As far as the other categories are concerned, I cannot say, in all honesty, that the people who've been chosen are in any way inferior or simply on the same level as other candidates from those films. For example, Samuel L. Jackson, who's been nominated before, some people complained that he should have been nominated for The Hateful Eight, which, interestingly,
this is
Tarantino's new film, which has generally not found favour with the Oscars electorate. But, it's a perfectly good performance, but there's nothing outstanding about it. Whereas when he was nominated for Pulp Fiction, some time ago, that really was an outstanding performance. And you could see it deserved to be a nominated performance. It's, of course, right to recognise talent from wherever it comes, But if you look at it rationally and you look at the actual films that are up, I mean, there are quite a lot of people who complained... black actors and directors may have complained that Straight Outta Compton didn't get any kind of major awards. Oddly enough, the only nomination they've received is for Best Original Screenplay, and the screenplay was written by a white person. But that's the luck of the draw. Again, I don't think that film is necessarily strong enough to have been in the best film category.
You and I both know, you better than me, that Hollywood was once proliferating with activists. You introduced me to one of your friends, Norma Barsman, wrote a wonderful book, The Red and the Blacklist. There were so many activists that the moguls, led by the right-wing government of the time, launched a witch hunt against them. Is Hollywood more politically quiescent now than it was?
Oh, I don't think so at all. The period when it was quiescent was the 50s, when obviously the blacklist still prevailed. And there was a sort of a tail end of that into the 60s. So it was controversial if you got involved with radical causes. People like Marlon Brando did so. In particular, he supported black civil rights causes and also Native American.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, but a lot of stars didn't want to get involved, and quite understandably, because not only the electorate of the Oscars, but the electorate, the wider electorate in the 60s was still very, in certain parts of the country, very prejudiced, and therefore it would have been sort of commercial suicide, just as it would have been commercial suicide for Rock Hudson to come out as gay in the 1960s when he was making those movies with Doris Day. He wouldn't have done it, and nor should we expect him to have done so.
But the field now, I mean, Hollywood actors, I saw that Penelope Cruz and her husband almost exiled from Hollywood over their stand on Gaza in defense of the Palestinians. Of course, there's a very high number of pro-Israel people running Hollywood, whether Jews or not. But you don't see many Penelope Cruzes and Javier Bardems.
No, you don't. I mean, and I think they would simply say, well, our business essentially is making movies. We may have private political views, we may choose to air them in public, and we may not. I mean, I don't think you should berate any movie actors, particularly actors or directors, for not being more active or taking more public stances on political issues. It's obviously a matter of choice.
So all well in the Oscars?
I would say this is a good year. I mean, I would say that particularly in the acting category. I mean, I think I just saw The Revenant the other night with Leonardo DiCaprio, and I cannot see, and Tom Hardy, both of whom I think are not quite shoo-ins for the awards, but certainly I would be surprised if they don't receive those awards. Yeah.
Oh, that's an endorsement. Everyone get out to see it. Christopher Sylvester. Thanks for joining us on the Sputnik.
Coming up next, one of Britain's rising black actresses, a former Eastenders star. Don't miss it.
Welcome back to Sputnik. Now, Hollywood is one thing, but what's the situation here in Britain for black talent in theatre, television and film? Bunmi Mojekwu starred in Eastenders, amongst other things, and a clue to the answer to my question could lie in the fact that this month she set up BAM Film Productions to, amongst other things, employ a diverse workforce in these fields. But before we speak to her, Gayatri went out onto London streets to see what the public thinks.
It's a tough one. In some instances, yes. In some instances, no. Because obviously stereotypes exist for a reason. Because there's certain people who act in a certain way. So I think there's maybe an underrepresentation of the complete spectrum of black people.
There's a lot of white people. Basically. Yeah, like every main character is essentially white. So.
On the TV in general, you don't really see, it's not really represented unless you go to a specific channel, then you will see them. And even the one that you see, you always see the same ones.
I tend to just look at what's been acted and how it's been acted and think, well, that was pretty good, or that was a bit naff, or whatever it may be.
Also, when black people are represented on TV, they kind of whitish.
Times haven't changed, things haven't moved on.
Bunmi, thanks for joining us on the Sputnik. There's this big row going on over the Oscars. Spike Lee says he's not going, neither is his wife. Dustin Hoffman says he's right. Other people say he's wrong. What's your take as a prominent black actress and now in the film production business?
I honestly feel like I think he's right. So I think it's time to make a stand. This has been 2 years in the running. So last year, all right, it probably just happened and we think, okay, that's it. Second year, it happens again. And it seems very deliberate. It seems that they're telling us that we are not going to recognize you for a second year. So now it's time for us to take a stand and say we're not going to stand by this again. Like, I just feel like it's very unfair, because as a community, what it says to us is that we are being ignored. Like, you can work as hard as you want to work, but we're not going to credit you. We're not going to give you the accolades that we're going to offer everybody else. And the question that I ask is why?
You wouldn't want somebody to get nominated for an Oscar that didn't deserve it, or a film to be given an accolade if it wasn't worthy of it. I know that you wouldn't want that. And our first guest, Christopher Sylvester, who's a great authority on movies, and who's certainly no racist at all, his view was that the only arguable contender that didn't make it was Idris Elba, that Samuel Jackson's performance was good but not great, as opposed to when he was great and did get nominated in Pulp Fiction. Is it the case that black talent didn't just make enough good movies in the last year?
I disagree with that, because the figures show that that's incorrect. And I just feel like it's just an excuse. People look for some kind of excuse to justify what's happened when it's as clear as day that it is just a very deliberate attempt at saying that we are not acknowledging you simply because of the color of your skin. And what it should be about is the talent. The talent proves that they are excellent and that they should be in the running to be nominated, to be recognized for their work. However, that's just not the case. And if anyone, in my opinion, says anything other than that, it's just an excuse, because you don't want to accept and realize that the society that we're living in is doing this to us.
It's a false reflection of society.
Absolutely.
That's what troubles me. You walk around London, it's a kaleidoscope of colours and backgrounds and religions, but it's not being reflected on screen.
Absolutely not. And it's bizarre, I just don't understand it. I can't understand it, because when it is reflected on screen, it's usually the stereotypes.
Exactly.
So like for myself, I'd get a character who's probably angry, she can't get a man, or I'm probably really funny, or I'm always secondary. I'm never really quite the lead. I can only support, and even if I'm supporting, I'm probably supporting the support. So
and you were the first black actress in Eastenders as well.
Well, no, I was the first African character and family. So I mean, in that,
because of course there's no real African families in the East End.
I know. So, I mean, I do commend them for taking that step, because at the time, it was a very big movement, and it was just amazing to be able to do such a thing. However, it does speak volumes to like the rest of the industry, that where, every time that we have to do something is always related to gun and knife crime or anything else, when we're so much more than that. And I believe it's time for us to take back our own narrative, take back our own control. I believe that we have skills and we are able to create a business or any kind of place where we can put our own work out, and we can also credit ourselves for it. I feel like as well as we need to be diverse on screen, behind the scenes as well. I mean, if you have
Is that what BAM Film Productions is going to try to do?
Absolutely.
You're going to be the Tamla Motown of the
Yes,
film
God,
business.
yes.
Because that's what happened.
Absolutely.
Yeah? All these black acts in the 1960s would never have got a look in on the existing record labels. So the greatness of Berry Gordy was he created his own label, which became so legendary that everybody else used to wish they were on Tamla Motown.
Exactly.
Let's hope that happens to you. But
thank you.
The charge you're making is quite serious. It's not your charge. It's not just that the electorate of the academy are subconsciously prejudiced, but that they consciously made a decision to act in a racist manner. That's quite a serious charge for me.
I do believe so, it is. But I feel like at the same time, that's all they know. These are the people who are employed there. That's all their experiences are.
Their world.
That's their world. So they can only relate to, I mean, art reflects the times.
True.
So that's their time, that's what they see.
True.
So if they see anything else other than that, they don't relate, they can't understand that. So that's why I feel it's very important to also diversify the workforce. So if in those corporations, and in that industry, if we see people of different colors and races and experiences, then they're able to say, oh, well, that related to me, this was an amazing film. They probably can't have that understanding. So where you see people who are in the positions and are diversified, then we can see a change happen. My mission is to change the narrative of British cinema. I really was motivated. I mean, after a while, I just got very bored. and very uninspired by the state of the industry, where I just felt like, why am I always doing this kind of character? Why won't I ever be considered for this? And then having conversations with my friends and family, I sound a bit crazy, like, oh my God. They're like, oh, calm down. It's not a calm down situation. It's my reality that if I go out for something, I can't get...
Don't calm down. Don't. When someone tells you to calm down, tell them no.
Oh, absolutely.
We need to be angry and not calm.
We need to, yeah.
But we watched a film about the making of the film Psycho the other night.
Okay.
Classic 1950s, Alfred Hitchcock. I think I'm right in saying there wasn't a single black face in the movie, because it was a movie about a movie in the 1950s when the only black faces were maids. They were black women looking after white people's children. Now, the only black faces are criminals, gun or knife crime, or if they are policemen, like Denzel was in that movie, in Training Day, you're a corrupt black policeman. That means the writers, the producers, the directors are all culpable in this, because all of us know successful black people. In fact, you know what needs to be done? You need to buy. Black people need to buy part of Hollywood.
I agree.
That's the only way that's going to change.
I absolutely agree.
As long as rich white men own all the movie houses in Hollywood, well, everything's going to reflect their perspective.
Absolutely, because how I was brought up is that my especially my mum, she was very forward in that I need to have my education. Whereas because I started my career while I was in college. So I didn't feel the need to go to university, but she was like, you need to go. So I was like, this is where my dad comes into it. My whole family are very entrepreneurial, so we've all come from nothing and they've all made it into something. So I've always known business. I've always known I'd be in business. So I thought if I'm going to go to uni, I'd rather do something that will benefit me in the future as opposed to a backup plan. I don't believe in that. So I thought to myself, I would like to open something within my fields, and maybe a drama school. I have now found it to be a film production company. And I feel that we are all afforded the same opportunities within this world, and that is education. If you use it to benefit yourself, you can benefit your community. So I believe that, like you just said, we do need to own our own. Then we don't have to ask anyone for any permission. And as a community, my own community, what we need to do is bind together to support it. Since I have launched this, I have received such support and such love, which almost threw me a bit, because I was like, whoa, I was not expecting this. I was so worried that no one was going to turn up or to anything I was going to put on, because people can be quite reserved at times, but it came at a right time. And what I want to tell people is to keep this momentum going. Don't stop. Don't get distracted by any Kardashian story. Don't get distracted by anything. This needs to happen now. And as a community, and all those who are affected and believe in a change need to get together and push this forward, because we've seen it. There are many people who are doing many tremendous things, like John Boyega, who is starring in Star Wars. But when we look at him, we think, wow, wow, he did it. Why should we say wow? He's a talent. Yeah. He should be able to do that, because at the end of the day, it's his talent that has pushed him there. And that's what I want to push people to remember, that it's talent first. We think about the talent. You don't care about where they're from or what they look like, what color of their skin is. That does not matter at the end of the day. But unfortunately, it does. So what we need to do is go back, learn your business, learn your trade. If you have a talent, learn the business behind it. So when you get in front of these corporations and these industry people, you know exactly what you're talking about. I'm gonna come up in there and I'm gonna say, listen, this is what I deserve, this is what I need. And you can't tell me any different, because I know. How I know, I learned. So I've taken the time to sit down, learn the business, learn my industry. And I feel that's the only way we can move forward. By boycotting things like the Oscars shows that we are making a stand, that we're not taking it anymore. The next step is to start owning. To own, you need to educate yourself.
Amen. Thank you very much for joining us on the Sputnik. And now it's your turn to tell us what you think through the portals of social media. What's rattling, Gayatri?
So Hollywood, is it a black and white matter? Ricardo Picasso says, well, 2013, 12 Years a Slave seemed an important moment in moving forward, but no black nominees since. And Elizabeth says, Oscars should only be dependent on who put in best acting performance, not about the race quota.
Yeah, but who decides that? Who judges whether there are any black actors, directors, producers that should be up for an award?
It basically argues that there are not enough black talent. How insulting is that?
That's the standard reply. It may have some validity, but
no,
most people...
No, it's just that the pool is not...
Most of the people who think it has some validity just happen to be white.
Well, I can respond to that with Denton's tweet, who sent us a photo of Chris Rock saying, yeah, I love being famous. It's almost like being white, you know? And that's all that we've got time for this week.
Which, alas, means that's the end of the show.
But you can stay in touch with us through Twitter at RT_Sputnik, on Facebook, Sputnik on Russia Today. It's goodbye from me, Gayatri.
And from me, George Galloway. It's been marvellous.